Today, I'm going to do transition pictures for Queen Elizabeth I, who was a very, very popular request, actually. I'm not quite sure why, but she was. She was the daughter of King Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn. But of course, Anne Boleyn was executed when Elizabeth was about 2 years old. The marriage was annulled, and Elizabeth was declared illegitimate. Even so, she came to the throne and she reigned for 44 years. This became the Elizabethan era, which is why when we talk about the plays of William Shakespeare, we talk about Elizabethan plays. They happened under her watch. She also started off the Protestant Church, which later became the Church of England, a religious woman and quite popular with people, unlike a lot of monarchs. There wasn't the shenanigans that went on with other kings and queens. She never married. She had regular dates and boyfriends, but didn't marry, didn't have children, and died without an heir in 1603 of melancholy. She actually died of depression after a number of people in her life, a number of very close friends, died. And she just went into a funk and wouldn't come out of it, wouldn't move, sat on the same chair for hours every day, and eventually she just died. She was buried in Westminster Abbey amid colossal mourning because she was a very, very popular queen after 44 years on the throne. So I took a look at her transition pictures. And I found myself in that cave. I always see that metaphorical space where people show up and run through their emotions as their consciousness fades away. I couldn't find her to begin with. That's quite common. I sometimes can't find the person, but I know they're there somewhere. Couldn't find her. When I looked over to my left, there was a light coming up from the floor, a golden light. And when I went over, it was coming from a hole in the ground, which led down, across, and up to the other side of the metaphorical cave wall. And Elizabeth was sitting by candlelight inside a very tight cavity, not wanting to come out. It was almost like one of those very small burial chambers you see in Egypt, where the dead king or queen is put in there and left for all eternity, except that she, in the pictures, was still conscious. And she sat there in the candle glow and simply wouldn't move. It's kind of like, well, this is where kings and queens go. We are isolated. We are in this small, refined area that other people can't come into. It felt exclusive. So I withdrew, and I waited I didn't wait a long time really, but it felt like I would have waited a long time if this wasn't symbolic. Until the candle inside her little cavity burned down till the flame went out. At which point, she emerged. It's like, there's no point in staying in there now, there's no light. And already, by being forced to enter this space, she was slightly humbled, slightly more accessible than she had been in her hidden cavity. And this did something to her. It seemed to release inhibitions. It seemed to release pent-up energies or aspirations, ambitions, dreams, because the moment she was given the liberation of this space, she started dancing. She danced for a while over there. She came back and skipped over here. She was so free. And there was an energy and a spirit that came from her that I don't think she had ever expressed before. She wasn't allowed to. She had station. She had responsibilities. The country looked to her to behave in a regal way. And now she didn't have to do that. Now she was free. It's like eternal youth had finally broken through the constrictions of status, and she could now live the way she'd always wanted to live, congruent with her soul, not bowing to convention or protocol or other people's rules. It was refreshing. She was happy for a time. And then she was overtaken by sadness at what she'd missed during her mortal life. This could have been hers, but for external factors, other agencies and compulsions and needs and rules that she had to comply with and succumb to. But now she didn't, and she felt so sad that she had missed out all these years. And she could have done this. It was there for the taking, and she hadn't done it. But of course, no matter who you are, great or small, there is no royalty after you die. Everybody's the same. We're all reduced to our spiritual selves. And yet there was a certain something, an elegance, as she strode up the tunnel. She felt that pull. She knew she had to go, but she was going to do it with a measure of dignity. There was a kind of skill to this almost. It had a kind of catwalk feel, like I can carry myself beautifully up this tunnel. I may not be in control of the situation, but I can do it to the best of my ability. And she strode regally, actually. She strode up this tunnel. And it did look to be a clear run through. Now that she'd shed all these constrictions and restrictions and rules. Once that was gone, she had found her inner self and was expressing it. Too late, but she was doing that. So there were no obstacles in the tunnel that I could see as she heads up towards the metaphorical dome, the light that I always see. It was quite remarkable. So I expected her to complete the tunnel. But she didn't. This is so fascinating. Towards the top, she, without realizing, stepped into an invisible force field. It was like an icy blast, like stepping from a warm room into a butcher's refrigerator. It was that stark, and everything within her froze and was shattered. Control shattered, importance shattered, rules shattered. Everything she had been as a queen was removed so that she could experience her sovereignty as a child of the divine. Now she knew what it meant to be alive. There was just the raw, animating force of this woman's consciousness. And it like shredded her being. It was the most extraordinary experience. So much so that when it stopped, she was not only wholly different from the kind of person she had been in life, but she was having feelings that she had never really allowed herself to experience. And instead of advancing into the light, she lay on the ground, metaphorically speaking, and said, "I'm here. Take me. Do what you want with me. I am yours." But here's the thing about this. I didn't know, because I am clueless about Elizabethan history, that she was popularly known as the Virgin Queen. I had no clue. She had boyfriends but never married. And it is presumed that she never had sex either. But she became quite famous for being a virgin by the time she died. This mattered because as she lay on the floor, she began writhing. Her entire body was given over to this. And she kept on going. This was beyond anything she'd ever felt in her life. And as I watched, a white fluid poured out of the dome area, came over the edge of it and spilled down the tunnel, engulfing her. And she splashed around with it on her back. It was astonishing to see and alarming. She was experiencing bliss, the bliss that comes with authentic connection to our deepest selves and our most profound emotions. And it released all these years of frustration. Being a virgin queen didn't have much going for it. And now she was getting those orgasmic feelings in the final stage of her mortal existence. It was extraordinary. But at the same time, as I went through this experience with her, I thought, this is how our spirit wants to feel. This is how we want to live our lives, really. Shedding rules and protocols and principles and so on, and experiencing who we are at our very core. Not what other people would like us to be, not what life has kind of made us, the way life made her a queen, but as we truly are on the inside, letting it all out, being fully congruent with our individual respective souls. This is what she discovered at this point. There is a meme going around that reminds us that each of us had two parents. And our parents had parents, so we had 4 grandparents. And their parents had parents, and so on back through the decades and the centuries. In the end, this meme reminds us that for those of us living today, if we only go back 12 generations, then each of us has 4,094 ancestors. And without those ancestors, you and I would not be here. That is a thing of enormous privilege. And I think that we forget that. We sometimes lose sight of what a privilege it is to be alive right now. And I think Elizabeth, despite her privilege on the mortal side and her sovereignty in terms of status, had lost sight of what personal sovereignty meant and what it meant to be fully alive, to experience all emotions, to do what we were here to do, to feel what we're here to feel. And only in the consciousness that followed death was she able to dance and skip and experience that orgasmic feeling of release. But it was too late. But it's not too late for us to experience life to its fullest. I think we have to look at our lives and go, where am I compromising unnecessarily? Where am I giving away my power to others and not empowering my own sovereignty? Every day I consider this now. Where am I giving my power away? To whom am I giving my power? When am I not saying what is right for me? What fulfills me? Once we start doing that, I think we move a step closer to the kind of unmitigated bliss that Elizabeth I felt in those closing moments before she stepped into the light. In fact, she didn't step into the light because this white liquid that came down and engulfed her eventually just ran right over her. And once it had, there was nothing more for her to do. She simply drifted with it, succumbed to these greater forces, and as an authentic soul, finally, a congruent soul, finally, she merged into unconditional love and was gone. Bliss, fulfillment, claiming our sovereignty. It's there for us if we dare do it. And I think sometimes we forget the degree of power we have, the extent of the needs we have, and the potential of the joy we could have if we only were congruent with our soul. That's what I learned from Queen Elizabeth I. Thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it. Subscribe if you would. Like, share. Follow me on Twitter @CashPeters. That'd be great. Otherwise, I'll see you next time, guys. Bye-bye.